Hey folks, welcome back. Another Paul Mass video. Today let's talk a bit about the New Year's Dawn and Oricorio, which is dropping at reset, which as usual we will be pulling for live, so make sure I'll tune into that. Should be fun. And yeah, so let's get into this unit's kit, right? Let's just first talk about like the basic stuff, right, in terms of her kit. Stat-wise, she doesn't have any, like, outstanding stat. Her special attack is pretty good, but outside of that, everything else is kind of whatever, right? Nothing really special on the other stuff. As for its moves, Revelation Dance is the definition of just an average 3-gauge move. No additional effects, 100% accuracy, 100/120 base power, 3-gauge move, right? Special Ghost, and then you have Feather Dance, which is a, well, it's -2 special or physical attack, right? Tear Dance, AoE, target or AoE confusion thing, right? 2 gauges. And then Trainer move, Perfect Dance, gives your team stat reduction defense, which is really nice. And then you also have personal heals 30%, and then you have +1 evasion, and then your sync nuke is based on the more your stats are raised, the stronger the move is. And then you got your passive stat up, makes it so that when something is buffed on this unit, it doubles the buff, right? So this +1 evasion would be like +2 evasion. And then you also have double drop, which is double that, right? So -2 physical attack will become -4 physical attack. And then you have extra special ghost damage, which is slightly interesting. This should act like the Darkrai one, where you like after you hit the opponent, it sends out an extra move following, right? Hit that does some damage. Which, I mean, the damage itself probably not going to be anything noteworthy, but it could be nice for potentially triggering any effects, right, that come with, when a move targeting an opponent is successful, right? So that actually has some pretty interesting implications, which we'll talk about once we get into the grid and other things. So yeah, that's the basic kit. It kind of feels like a unit that's trying to do a lot of different things, and I won't say it doesn't do any of them exceptionally well, because she definitely does one thing very well, and she might be the best in the game at doing that, which is debuffing physical attack. She's like really good at this, because that's -4 physical attack in 1 turn, which in terms of speed and efficiency wise, she might be the best in the game at that, unless I'm missing someone. But I mean, if not the best, at least easily, top 3 at that, right? So she does do one thing exceptionally well, but outside of that, they're trying to make her like an evasion tank, while also being a debuffer, while also being like a damage healer / nuker, which she is a good nuker. Not so much damage healing, but anyways, we'll get to that when we go over the pros and cons and stuff. So in terms of how many copies do you want if you're trying to go for her, at 1 out of 5 you have the basic kit. Which I would say, if you're just pulling her to debuff the opponent's physical attack very well, then 1 out of 5 is enough. But also, you shouldn't pull for a unit just for that. That's not enough to justify pulling for a unit. Like, it's good, but that's not really enough, right? Just spend your gems on something. 2 out of 5, you have some really nice stuff. You have Massive Healer, you got MP Refresh on your trainer move, you got Stop Hitting Yourself 5, right? Makes the opponent hit themselves more often when they're confused. You got Quick Tempo, which could be nice as well. So there's that. And at 3 out of 5 is where you get most of your stuff. Recuperation, heals on your sync. Power Posture, right? Which is a regular move multiplier, right? Based on attack lowering. Sync Power Flux is her big sync nuke multiplier. There's also Interference Sync 5, another sync nuke multiplier. You have Charging Affliction 4, which is very interesting. It gives you 4 move gauges back when you use a status move, which is kind of huge. All right, you know what? That's another thing that she's exceptionally good at, right? Getting gauges back for your team, very good. Grab Bag 9 over here. 100% chance of lowering one of the target's following stats by 1 rank at random when you use move targeting the opponent. Attack, defense, special attack, special defense, speed and accuracy, or evasion. So basically, outside of crit, like, guaranteed chance of debuffing one of those, which with her passive is going to be 2, right, with double drop. And again, the interesting thing comes in here, where this extra special ghost damage makes it so that if you do pick this up, it's going to trigger twice, right? Assuming it acts like the way Darkrai's does. It should trigger twice, so you're getting like 2 of these, which is just -4 stats every time you're using that, right? Which it would be -8 if you're using like Feather Dance. So yeah, this is definitely very, very, very good. And then you get extra muscular safety tether, which is fine, I guess. But yeah, I feel this is a unit where you kind of want to have at 3 out of 5, right? Yeah, you really have to have this unit at 3 out of 5, I'd say, unfortunately. If you do want to go for her, you got to get her at 3 out of 5. 1 out of 5 is just not worth going for unless you're really just pulling for her for like collection purposes. But if you really want to make her work, 3 out of 5 is the way to go, unfortunately. Whether it's pulling extra copies, using move candies, obviously up to you, depending on your situation. So yeah, that's the unit over there overall. As for some pros and cons we could get into, so pros, she has a really good ghost nuke, which is true, right? I mean, if you look at her ghost nuke, it is pretty freaking high. It's not the highest of the ghost units, right? But 6 million anywhere is good. 6 million anywhere is definitely good. Although obviously you do need it at 3 out of 5 for her nuke stuff. She is an evasion tank, which I'll give her a prop for that because she could do it. Is it a good thing? Probably not, because relying on evasion tank is yeah. She's also a good debuffer, right? Again, at 3 out of 5. First of all, her Feather Dance is -4 physical attack every single hit, which is pretty good in of itself. And then the random debuffs over here is an extra -4, stats, right, as well, which is again pretty huge. So yeah, that's really, really good. She's definitely a very, 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 very good debuffer, right? Stat reduction shield is really nice as well against certain legendary gauntlet stages, like Regirock, Azolf, whatever, right? There's a lot of them that debuff stuff, so that's very, very good. And then the 3 out of 5 charging infliction for like gauge back. As you could probably see, every single one of these things on this list is stuff you need at 3 out of 5. So again, you need 3 out of 5, right? So anyways, on to some cons. First of all, her DPS is pretty bad. I mean, this is like, yeah. This is not good. It's not good at all, unfortunately. Let's see. So yeah, bad DPS. The self buffs are bad. Like, this is honestly hilarious as a unit that has a sync nuke based on how many stats are buffed, right? And you have a passive where it doubles up the stats that you buffed. The entire kit only has 1 stat buff. Literally only just 1 stat buff, man. Yeah, plus evasion 1 over here. Terrible self buffs. Complete waste. Could have been so much better and fun of a unit if she had better self buffs. Obviously, yes, you could buff her stats with other units and she still has double those stat buffs, but that's also odd because like it's a unit built to also tank, so theoretically you should bring her like as the tank so you don't have to bring another support that could tank. But then you also need to bring a support to give her like any stats at all outside of evasion, so that's just really bad. If you're going for damage, I mean, yeah, she could do damage. She's obviously not a main damage dealer, but if you're like looking for damage, ghost types, you should probably look elsewhere, right? And the last thing is RNG. It's a very, very RNG unit. Obviously evasion, relying on evasion to survive is RNG in of itself, but also, for example, the grab bag 9, the debuffs over here are very, very much RNG as well. Confusion, even with stop hitting yourself, right? Because confusion could help her tank a bit as well, right? If the opponent hits himself, a few times more than often. But yeah, it's just very, very, very RNG. Overall, it's incredibly RNG unit. And I guess one more con could be just like bad setup, I suppose, right? And also, we mentioned this before, but you need 3 out of 5 for this unit, so it is pretty expensive in terms of just getting the best out of her, right? All right, let's talk about some Synchro and Lucky Skill, I guess, options you could go for her if you do decide to pull and hopefully, if you do pull her, get her, I guess, right? So there's Lucky Skill wise, there's actually quite a few options you could go for. Obviously there's Vigilance for tank, Crit Strike 2 for damage, that's just the standard stuff. But since she does have the stat up ×2 and she doesn't have any self buffs, you could potentially go and give her one of those silver deluxe cookies and try to roll one of those entry 2 skills, right? Like Grand Entry 2 if you're trying to use her to do damage. But personally, I'd say Speedy Entry would probably be the best one, right? You know, gauges, unless you're fine with charging Infliction for holding up your entire like gauges. But other than that, Sentry Entry, Wise Entry, they're both really, really nice if you're again trying to make her tank as well. You know, that's just +4 defense or special defense depending on which one you pick up for her, which is again just very, very, very good to have. So yeah, so those entry skills are I feel definitely really, really nice and solid options that you could potentially run on her. I guess you could also go for like Mind Games or Defense Crush for the debuffs on double drop, but if you do have, again, 3 out of 5, this is just generally fine grab bag. It is RNG based, but you know, if you do hit it once, that's like -4 or so. I don't feel like the debuffs are as big of a deal in comparison to like the buffs. But anyways, all right, let's get into the grid at 1 out of 5. Just pick up everything, I guess. Right? I mean, if you want to save orbs, just don't pick up Clear-Headed or Antitoxin if there's no like stage that really needs you to, or Fast Runner, I guess. But like everything else, you could basically pick up. At 2 out of 5, we have a few options. Again, it really depends on what you're trying to run her as. But generally, this is a lot of just tanking stuff, right? So you go for Stop Hitting Yourself over here to help the confusion, you know, stuff. Quick Cure if there's a stage that does any of that stuff. MP Refresh with Master Healer could be nice. Could actually help max out your evasion for one, and also more stat reduction stuff, or you know, Field Effect is good. Heals are nice too. As for some other stuff, like maybe Quick Tempo over here, depending on the scenario, right? There's obviously scenarios where you don't really need it, but if you don't need it, as for the rest, you can go for Move Gauge Refresh, right? Or you could just go for stats, honestly, right? For example, if you're trying to tank a physical stage, pick up more like defense stuff. Special stages, more, you know, special defense stuff, right? Just really depends. Speed's always useful. HP is always useful if you're tanking with her. Special attack is useful if you're trying to do damage, so it really depends for the rest what you're you know, trying to do with her. So at 3 out of 5 over here, let's just do a nuke build first. So if you do want to nuke, obviously Interference Sync 5, Sync Power Flux. Over here, you know, big things where you know, that you have to pick up. And as for the rest, you could maybe do something like this, right? So this is actually really, really nice because not only do you get the Sync Nuke stuff, Sync Power Flux, Interference Sync 5, both Sync Nuke Power Up nodes, and you also get Charging Affliction 4 and Grab Bag 9, which are probably, you know, the 2 best nodes she has on her kit. Again, I really wouldn't go for the DPS stuff. Like, it's really not that worth it. Her DPS really is just not worth investing too much in. But I guess if there's anything else you really want to pick up, I suppose you could maybe pick up Recuperation if you really want Recuperation. Obviously, it comes at the cost of some of the other stuff, right? So it really depends. Maybe if you want to do like a bit less damage on your sync, maybe you could drop like Interference Sync over there. And let's see, can we afford something like this? Yeah, we could do something like that, which balance between you still do good sync damage, not as good obviously, but then you like also heal 40% on every sync, which is a decent amount, right? So if you are tanking relatively nice here, you get quite a few heals back up, right? So it's like every three turns you get 40% of your HP back, at least, right? If you're not, you know, not counting your trainer moves. So if you dodge like 1 or 2 moves every sync cycle, you should be fine HP wise, unless you're just fighting someone which is very, very powerful offensively, right? So yeah, there's that. As for like some of the other stuff, all those are really dependent on what you're fighting, I guess, right? In terms of, again, just stuff like Quick Cure, obviously, and Antitoxin, whatever. I don't really care about the Master Healer that much on the trainer move, but if you do, you could go for that. So yeah, As for grab bag versus charging affliction, also again depends on what you're trying to do. All right, do you want the more debuffs or do you want the gauges, right? So yeah, that's the other option, I suppose. Team comp wise, if you want to go like all out with her nuke, you could do something like this, but there's the obvious irony of Cynthia has a better, Renegade Cynthia does have a better nuke on this team. Although this team specifically, maybe not, just because she can't max out her her physical attack stat. But you know, yeah, if you do want to just make like New Year's Dawn look really good here, you could obviously run this. You got Ghost rebuff, you got all the stat buffs you really need from Alistair, all by, you know, albeit very slow, but still you'll get them eventually. But she does have like the double stat buff, so it makes it like faster there at least, right? But otherwise, I guess, you know, over here it doesn't have to be Alistair. Obviously, it could be like any support really that could buff her over there. As for I feel like especially if you are running her in gauntlets, some like really nice like little things you could do is just run her with some worse like supports, like tanking wise, right? For example, you could run her with something like where is it, the MC and a Torchic, right? Where Torchic thanks to her you know, ×2 stat buffs over here. Where's Torchic, bro? What happened to Torchic? Torchic does not exist anymore. But yeah, thanks to that, Torchic could fully max out her offensive stats if you're trying to have her nuke as well as tank. But more so just a lot of like the support Eggmons, right? Because none of the support Eggmons, even at like full investment, are like great tanks. But you know, some of those support Eggmons, you throw it in there. You know, if you're trying to make her tank better, obviously some support Eggmons that could buff defenses. If you're trying to make her deal damage, obviously support Eggmons that could do buff offenses, right? Throw some support Eggmons in there could be pretty good options too for, again, something like Gauntlet. And obviously the damage dealer depends on whatever damage dealer you're trying to run there. So yeah, there are some fun things you could definitely do with this unit. Okay, so the unit in general, right? New Year's Dawn and Oricorio. Again, it does some great stuff in terms of the debuffing is definitely very nice. But there's just it just has a very uncoordinated kit in a lot of different places, and they're trying to make her into something that's just not very reliable. Again, very RNG based. Also, like, you really need 3 copies of this unit to really make it work, and it still might not work depending, right? So yeah, I'd say overall maybe probably like a 5.2 out of 10 pull rate, I'd say. Really good outfit, plus it's Dawn, so I'll be very popular character there. So again, if it's your favorite, you should still go for it, obviously. But otherwise, it's something you could probably skip over generally, right? Definitely, probably, you know, you could save on, right? It's, yeah, like, she just have like too many issues, right? Herself as a unit not incredibly reliable, but also even if you do want to make her good, like at her best, she needs a lot of help from her team, right? A lot of outside help to make her look good, right? It's not a unit that makes the rest of your team look good as much as you need a lot of really good teammates to make her, you know, look nice. So anyways, yeah, that's me this one, I guess. Hope y'all gentlemen guys think in the comments down below. Like, enjoy the video, for our channel, some more Paul Maz content. And yeah, we'll be pulling for her tonight, so stay tuned for that. And have fun, and I'll see you guys in the next one then.